Work on our phone.
and and leading this along with Francisco, and Malika is on, and Liz, Salim's mother, my former wife, is on. That's a treat. We haven't been on a line together for quite a while, and Shirley and I are sitting opposite each other at a desk in our space here in Jacksonville, and so this is very much a community, a family event, and it's also a community event from around the world. There are people online from Peru and Nairobi and all parts of the United States, from Oregon to Florida, DC to Louisiana, Texas, Massachusetts. Lonnie Powers is on, and Jim and Laurie here in Jacksonville, and Marsha Holmes, and so a bunch of people we know here, and then people who are in the community of the Synergy Yoga. And so it's interesting how things happen. I got an email from Sue Stetson, who is Shirley's sister-in-law, just an hour ago, that just falls right into place with this time. So I'm just going to read it. It says, may you be healthy, may you be happy. May you gently ride the waves of your life. May you live in peace, no matter what you're given. And then quotes Mahatma Gandhi's, "The golden way is to be friends with the world and regard the whole human race, the whole human family as one." And of course, that's fundamental to the notion of community building. And so this time together is based on the notion of building community from the inside out. And as I was thinking about that, it's actually not a question of building community, but recovering community. Because in this work, one of the assumptions that we bring is that we are already community. We simply have not discovered how deeply that community runs in our world. And or given meaning to that. So I want to go back to the breath for a moment, because I am feeling, because the excitement is really wonderful. I'm feeling it, so I want to go back to my own breath. And so let's just pause for a moment. I'm going to pause myself and reestablish what Salim established, and that is my own breath. So how about a few deep breaths in and out, sitting solid in your spine and in your legs and in your back, whatever is comfortable for you. In and out, a deep breath in, remembering that the word to breathe in is to inspire, literally. Inspire. Inspiration comes from breathing in. And the word to breathe out is expire. So as we breathe out, we are literally expiring. Birth begins with an inspiration. An infant born, the first thing that happens is that it breathes in. And we leave this plane, this earth, with expiration. We die, expiring. So breathing in and breathing out. And as Carlos reminded us a couple of weeks ago, there's a space in between the in-breath and the out-breath that is a still point. When the in-breath is done and the out-breath has not begun, there's a still point. That is the point of highest potential. So we begin with a sound. I'm going to ring a bell to start. Something's happening in our universe. Something's happening in our country. The Yoga Alliance suggests that 55 million people practice yoga these days in our country. And nearly as many people practice meditation to some degree. That expresses a yearning for some new way of connecting some new ways of connecting. And so I believe that yoga and meditation are new foundations for building community. So the idea of building community or rediscovering community from the inside out, to my mind, begins with the breath and with the body in shapes that communicate and that build on the breath. Building community has a lot to do with the stories we tell each other. And my memoir is a collection of some stories that I have told myself. And the guiding image in this book, the name of the book is The Slave in My Mirror. As you can see on your screen, The Slave in My Mirror. As I gaze into what my mirror, who do I see? Well, that has changed in the 2.5 years I've been writing this book in some fundamental ways. And so my intent today is to read to you the preface from my memoir, which builds the foundation for my stories. And then to guide you in a meditation that I call the Vortex Meditation, which Shirley and I actually learned at Gene Houston's Mystery School a few years ago. A few. That will be an experience of building community from the inside out. And what I want to suggest you do is, as you hear my voice, stay with your breath. And you might even go into a position we call soft eyes. Soft eyes is not a closed eyes. It's not a full meditation state. It's a shallow meditation. But if you find a place on the floor in front of you, maybe 6 to 9 feet in front of you, find a spot on the floor. Breathe deeply. Now, breathe deeply. Find a spot on the floor. Breathe deeply. In and out. Inspire yourself. Expire yourself. And let your eyes go soft and unfocused. Everything slows down with the breath. Everything slows down. So as I read to you, listen with your soft eyes and with an open heart. Words have meaning. We're going through a period of tremendous grief right now with this pandemic. And I was wondering the other day about the meaning of the word to care, because it feels to me like we are allowing death to occur at a certain level because we don't care enough. And so I looked up the word care, and the etymology of the word care is interesting. The word care in the Western framework actually means to grieve. It means grieve and lamentation. So my sense is that what's going on underneath this pandemic, this grieving, this lack of care, is a deep grieving. And that grieving comes from, in the United States and in the West, I think, unacknowledged pain and suffering that has come from our oppression of people. And my own history has to do with the oppression of my slave ancestors. And so my preface begins in the spring of 1876, and so I'm now reading from it. In the spring of 1876, Noah Rollins, a 23-year-old freed slave, left post-Reconstruction Florida for the arduous trip to Boston. He sought to escape the terror and violence rising in the South and to find a better life in the North. Young Noah was a waiter in Jacksonville's luxurious St. James Hotel. He was among tens of thousands of freed slaves heading north, one of the fortunate few who had a job waiting in the North. J.D. Campbell, the owner of the St. James Hotel, had hired Noah to work off-season at the Commonwealth Hotel in Boston, which Campbell also owned. Noah left behind his mother and father, Susan and Charles Rollins, who themselves had risen from slavery to become prominent Black leaders in their hometown of Tallahassee. He also had left behind his siblings, the family's comfortable residence in downtown Tallahassee, and the 60-acre farm they owned on Rollins Point, on the shores of Lake Jackson in the remote Florida countryside. More than a century later, more than a century after Noah made that trip to Boston, Shirley and I found ourselves strangely drawn to Jacksonville to consult on a project to help address racial injustice in the very city from which Noah had departed. We arrived in December of 1998, unaware that Noah had lived and toiled here or that Charles, his father, had traveled the dangerous territories of North Florida from Tallahassee to Jacksonville to testify in hearings by the Freedmen's Bureau against the Ku Klux Klan. And an even more remarkable synchronicity, our racial healing work was taking place on the same plot of land where the St. James Hotel once stood, 117 West Duval Street, where Jacksonville City Hall now stands. Almost 20 years later, we learned of even more stunning family connections. Charles and Susan Rollins were my great-great-grandparents. Noah Rollins was my great-grandfather. I learned of Noah, Susan, and Charles from Patrick Mason, a distant cousin and Rollins family historian. Patrick still lives on Rollins Point with his wife Winifred, on Rollins Road, not far from the old homestead. Rollins House, and Rollins House, outside Tallahassee. Rollins House was built in 1870. It was the family's original country home. It's now registered as a National Historic Site. Other descendants of Charles and Susan also live nearby. They're part of my lineage, sustained over the century from slavery until today. I was unaware of any of this Rollins lineage in Florida until 2018, when a series of extraordinary synchronicities brought my unknown past to light, and there's more. For most of my life, I believed that my friend Dick Hurt and I were the first Black reporters at the Boston Globe in the 1960s. Then the search for the slave in my mirror uncovered Robert Timo, a former slave who wrote for the Boston Globe for years in the 1850s. Robert's sister Alice was my great-grandmother, Noah Rollins' wife. Robert preceded me at the Globe by 100 years, a fact I just discovered by my sister, scholar Judy Rollins, recently. So the slave in my mirror has become an inner journey of discovery, new levels of consciousness that have brought me full circle to these and other revelations. It's become a return to my ancestral family and to my heritage. As T.S. Eliot wrote, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. The slave in my mirror does more than record reality, recount facts, and convey impressions. My words have become an anthropologist's tool with which I explore mysteries and discover truths that enable to see my culture and myself for the first time again and again. The truths and mysteries are more than self-revelatory. They reach out, they caress, they are deeply personal. It has occurred to me throughout this journey that many decisions in my life have been subtle revelations of my subconscious, guided by this slave knowing, a slave sensibility inherited from my ancestors. I've come to understand that I have access to powerful, intuitive, even mystical material inherited from Africa, from Africans, and from my African American slave ancestors. Forces that I have at various times devalued and depressed, that at various times have devalued and depressed me, and at times have elevated and inspired me, have lifted me up. Raising my consciousness to elevate my ability to manage the impact of these unconscious forces has been my life work. And it is the principal work of this memoir. The journey of moving material hidden in the shallower recesses of my unconscious into the bright light of consciousness, increasingly to become responsible for myself and the world I create. As Maya Angelou suggested, this is a quote, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Reverend King once wrote, all meaningful and lasting change begins on the inside. The slave in my mirror explores my inner journey into greater consciousness as I look backward into my past and look forward into my future, like the Sankofa, a West African symbol in the form of a bird that turns to look backward while its feet face forward to the future. The word Sankofa means go back and get it and bring back that which is useful. It is wise to go back to the past for that which you have forgotten and not yet grasped or not yet discovered. And to do this grounded in and honoring the present moment, one deep breath at a time. In its beak, the Sankofa bird carries a small, smooth egg. The egg represents transition from one place to another, one time to another, one state to another. I've experienced transformation and transcendence, guided by subconscious energy, as I've gathered in my past while moving into my future through the words and images in this book. The memoir flows like a river. It begins with two sections that bubble up gently near its source. These experiences flow into the tempestuous rapids of the 1960s and 1970s, including my years as a reporter and political columnist at the Boston Globe, as an editor of foreign news at the New York Times, and my work in the civil rights movement. Those experiences threw me into turbulent waters, eddies and undertows in places as distant as New York City and Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Those revolutionary decades claimed the bulk of the book. And like the river, my wanderings through life's lessons have turned and doubled back again and again, moving me gently into my elder years toward river deltas that flow into the deep ocean of my unconscious. Charles, Susan, and Noah Rollins appear out of the mist to greet me at the soulful intersection of river and sea. They are the actual plantation slaves in my Rollins lineage. Today, I'm an 82-year-old Black man gazing into my mirror. I reflect on this journey from the perspective of my slave heritage. An elegant, elderly man contemplating his reflection is the controlling image of this book. I see an aging archetype. The elegant slave is an archetypal figure, an image that seems counterintuitive until I came to see myself as a full human being whose very presence defies the system of slavery, past and present. Throughout this book, I recall and record scenes, situations, events, conversations, and experiences, weaving them together impressionistically from swatches and threads of memory, while adhering to facts. In the process, I've consulted others who were present and I've grounded the work in research. And so my discernment follows my recollections, and my intent is to discern my personal truth and wider truths that carry universal meaning. My unconscious mind is part of the collective unconscious. My emerging consciousness is an aspect of the rising consciousness around the world, which I believe is the ultimate goal of humanity. The civil rights movement opened the doors for massive cultural shifts. As with many Americans, I struggle with the tensions of multiculturalism and pluralism. The fate of Americans who trace our lineage to slavery seems up to grabs in this onslaught of cultural change. Will African American culture survive the social and economic onslaught? Will those who struck the match of change in the movement years be left in the dark? Or will we continue to raise up torches of enlightenment, a role for which our collective heritage has prepared us? The slave in my mirror is my return to a taproot of spirit that brought my slave forebears through difficult, violent times. Susan and Charles Rollins and their son Noah knew things I have only recently discovered. They held in their hearts things I risk losing, not in their outer world, because the reality is, for part of their lives, they're enslaved. But in their inner lives, they were never enslaved. They achieved freedom in their souls. Their lives become accessible as I gaze deeply, with growing consciousness and love, at the slave in my mirror. Sometime after midnight, on Monday, April 18th, 2005, Shirley and I were jarred awake. It was a call I had dreaded for years. Kahari just died. Malika delivered the news about her younger brother, hushed and weeping. The grief in her voice was as hollowing as her words. My 38-year-old ebullient daughter, ever the optimist, foundering to express the horror she felt. "Oh no," I sobbed as I slumped back onto the bed. Malika and I wept together as Shirley embraced my heaving shoulders. The following days, grief arrived in tsunamis that crashed down, buckled my knees, sent me reeling to our living room floor. Each wave burst my chest, bent me in half, my arms grasping my waist to contain the pain that flooded my body. I look into my mirror today and wonder, what else might I have done for him, for Kahari? What else might I have brought to him? Why did I not love my 33-year-old man-child enough to sack my life and go to the streets of Harlem to rescue him from himself? When Kahari died in Harlem Hospital in New York City, Shirley and I lived in Jacksonville, a world away. The streets of central Harlem offered drugs and a lifestyle with ample temptations for a needy, vulnerable young man. The cause of his death remains uncertain to me. I have, frankly, not had the courage to find out. There's a place in my heart where Kahari will live forever. In my memory, his dark eyes narrow in sly laughter, as if seeing right through my banal words. His forehead is sweeping and his short cropped hair is set above a skeletal face with high cheekbones and pouting lips. His skin is the color of mocha. His fingers are thin and bony. I hear his labored breath on those nights as a teenager. He woke in panic, struggling to breathe, his asthma inhaler inadequate.
Yeah, it's chill.
We rushed through perilously still darkness to the emergency room, where he grabbed my arm as a young physician administered a steroid injection. Relief would be instantaneous. He breathed, smiled in embarrassed, his lean body collapsing into mine. I held him close, realizing my breath too was tight and labored. 2 days later, Kahari loped up a long hill in a cross-country meet in Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. His small chest heaved as he swallowed lungs full of air. I marveled as his thin legs carried him over the finish line. His wide mouth grinned with his accomplishment. Upon seeing my pride as he doubled over, panting for air. The road from Van Cortlandt Park, to his death bewildered me. We had sat together in a cloistered psychiatrist's office on the west side of Manhattan through years of counseling and therapy, climbing hills of hope and descending into valleys of despair together. Private schools could not contain him. Open schools without walls could not liberate him. We drifted from one solution to another. In the end, nothing could give Kahari what he needed. The streets took him in and offered him things I could not. My love was not enough. He needed more. Finally, as his rage focused increasingly on blaming me, I understood I did not know what was needed to help him navigate his changing, dangerous world. We let each other go. The slave in my mirror is for Kahari, for Malika, and for my son Salim. Parts of my life remain obscure to them. Malika is now in her 50s. For many years, she has asked me to write my story. She and her teenage son, Miles, my curious grandson, desire to know more of their family story. Salim is in his 40s and living in Nairobi with his young family. He also wants to know. And he wants his children, Glorious Azza and drummer child Assad, to know. In her quiet way, Azza and Assad's mother, Fatima Abdullahi, also wants to know. Until now, I've held back. I've been protective. I've been, frankly, fearful. This is also for Shirley, who for the 24 years of our marriage has encouraged me to write my stories. She has graciously and patiently withstood the looks and the questions, subtle and overt, with which white women married to Black men live. She has transformed those looks and questions into a sacred curiosity of her own, always open and wondering. She's brought along her children, Caitlin and her husband Abraham, and Stephen and his wife Liz and their families. Together we parent a remarkable multicultural family. Shirley has taken Slave in My Mirror into her giving heart, as she always does, deepening our life together. The Slave in My Mirror is my personal Sankofa, my opportunity to go back and get that which is useful, then bring it forward with love. The Sankofa holds truth. I see the inner slave in my mirror, looking back to look ahead. The image is embedded there in my memory, in my genes, and in my lived experience. It is a journey that I began when I was 8 years old. That's the end of my preface and the beginning of the memoir, which starts with an experience that I had, my first experience of numinosity, which is that revelatory experience of being outside of one's body. When I was 8 years old in an event with my mother and father. So that's the part of my story. We all have our stories. And the metaphor that I use for this story is the Sankofa, which is a West African symbol that has deep meaning in the Adendrinka language. So I want to bridge now into a meditation. And I want to suggest this idea of building or discovering or recovering or uncovering community from the inside out represents a universal hunger, in my estimation. It represents a need that is unfulfilled and to a great extent unexpressed at this point in our time. There's another image that some of you may be familiar with. It's an image out of Buddha. It's called the unalome. So can you put that up? In Buddhism, you can see from the language here, unalome is a symbol and an image of reaching enlightenment. The spiral at the bottom, the process of spiraling at the bottom and then spiraling up, represents our struggle with life. It's the twists and turns of life, the struggle with life. And we go through those struggles in our life until at a point in time, according to this belief, we reach a point in our awareness where the line becomes straight or straighter. And we find that we have finally found some levels of harmony that lead ultimately to enlightenment. There's another second image of the unalome, something if you put that one up, which some people use. It distinguishes the male dynamic from the female dynamic. But it's the same process of moving through life, initially with less direction, with less intent, and importantly, with less conscious awareness. Through the twists and turns to a point where we rise up, and I think about Maya Angelou's notion of I rise to a point at the top, which in this image represents enlightenment. It also, in some traditions, represents the third eye. And the chakras. There are other traditions in which some of the Hindu work, it represents certain Hindu gods and goddesses. And in Buddha, it represents Buddhist enlightenment. So that's an interesting image of representing the twists and turns that one goes through in life towards increased consciousness. As the Sankofa represents a desire for greater consciousness, looking backwards in order to move forward into greater consciousness. There's another interesting image that comes out of West Africa. And so maybe if you put up so this is an image that is called, and I studied the pronunciation on this. It is called the Nchinchim. And some of you who were with me and Shirley when we went to the Equal Justice Initiative Memorial in Montgomery, Alabama, Brian Stevenson's memorial to the lynchings, will represent the Nchinchim, because that is also the name of the installation in Montgomery. But this is the image, and this image, go back to the image just for a minute. This image in West African mythology, and by the way, mythology does not mean, a myth isn't something that isn't true. A myth is a greater, higher level story. So we think of, the word myth has been distorted in our culture to mean something that is false. A myth is a higher level story. A myth is an archetype level story. It's a universal story. It's a story that is in all of our collective unconscious. And part of the challenge, of course, is to bring those elements in our collective conscious into greater consciousness. But this is the Nchinchim. It is it's the identical meaning to the unalome. These two emerged through identical processes around the same time in history, in the 1500s or 1400s. So if you'd go to the next slide, Celine, there's another image. This is, of course, the labyrinth. And the labyrinth has a symbol, and it's a Christian, Judeo-Christian, but primarily Christian. And so it represents the twists and turns that a person goes through in life to reach fulfillment. The same concept of going through the struggles in life, moving increasingly into the center to full realization, to fuller consciousness. To do that work, whatever is required. And in this case, we're talking about the opportunities for yoga and meditation as the work that help lead us from unconscious state of mind into greater and greater consciousness. To the extent that we are operating out of our unconscious means that we are being controlled by forces out of our awareness. So the challenge of moving and the opportunity of moving from an unconscious state to a more conscious state is very much parallel to the state of building community, so that we become more intentional in the communities. The beloved community is an intentional community. Martin Luther King's notion of the beloved community. And the labyrinth represents that. And the labyrinth also has, in some versions of it, it's not as clear in this particular version, in some versions, a six-pointed star embedded in it, which is, of course, the Jewish tradition. So this is a Judeo-Christian image that represents this identical process of movement from the subconscious to the unconscious as the steps or phases of our growth. From the self-conscious, from the unconscious to the conscious. Now, this is not only abstract, because if you put up the next image, a West African artist whose name is Kwame Akoto Bamfo was given the challenge of creating a sculpture for the National Memorial of Peace and Justice in Montgomery, which is the memorial to lynchings. And so he took the basic concept of the intinchim, the lines, the dynamics, the energy, the movement, and created the sculpture, which he calls intinchim installation. So this is an installation on the grounds of the memorial. And in the background, you will see the memorial itself, which is 800 spectacular 6-foot steel slabs hung from a steel roof, each of those slabs representing a county in the 12 states of the South where lynchings occurred. There were 4,000 some odd lynchings in the South. And so Jim and Laura Crooks and I don't know if Sarah is on, but the group of people from Jacksonville, Shirley and I took up to this memorial in October. And we used it as a process for inner work, for engagement around increasing our consciousness as to the realities of lynching and to engage in the healing dialogue that can flow from this experience. So the opportunity here for all of us is to engage our subconscious and to move that subconscious material into consciousness. So how does that happen? How do we do that work? There are a variety of ways, of course. And yoga is a practice of breathing into space and time, using our bodies to generate feelings and reactions and responses that our mind then has the opportunity to figure out how to manage without judgment. And so the breathing without judgment into our space and time and allowing the realities to present themselves without judgment is a process. The same with meditation. So I want to engage you now in a 15-minute meditation, and then we'll have some time to talk. Oh, great. It looks like Tanisha has just joined from Florence, Alabama. Welcome, Tanisha. So this is wonderful to have this kind of community of 39 people on together from around the world and around the country, some of whom we know and some of whom we don't, in an interim, temporary, intentional community. So my story is my story, and each of you has stories. My stories have come up for me as expressed in my preface and in more extensively in my memoir, through my own processes of meditation and reflection, through study, through contemplation, and by beholding non-judgmentally what I discover, simply noticing. So I've just taken a deep breath. So to all take a deep breath now, we're going to into a meditation. This is called the Vortex Meditation. And so I've closed my eyes. Please close your eyes. Breathe deeply in to the count of 8. Slowly. Hold your breath and breathe out slowly. Breathe in slowly, count of 8. Hold your breath. At still point, breathe out. Breathe in, fill your belly full breath. Breathe out. Once more, breathe in. Deeply. Hold your breath. Breathe out. Now, simply normal breath. Scan your body. Make sure that every part of your body is totally relaxed. Breathing gently with grace and ease. Totally relaxed. Breathing gently. And now you are on a beach by the sea. The sun is shining on your back and feels warm and wonderful. In front of you is the wide expanse of the ocean. It's a broad beach, runs north and south. White sands. The sun feels warm on your back. As you breathe in, you can smell the salt air in your nostrils. It smells wonderful. Breathing in and breathing out gently with the sun on your back and the salt in your nostrils. The wide expanse of the ocean in front of you. There's a boat in front of you, too. It's a small boat, but not too small, not too large. It's very much your boat. It might be a sailboat. It might be a powerboat. It might be a canoe or a kayak. It's your boat. It's a boat that you love, by the way. It's a boat that you're very familiar with. It might be a rowboat. It might be a sailboat. It's your boat. You're breathing gently and you're feeling the breeze and you're feeling the sun. You're dressed comfortably. James Baldwin said we should dress our identity in the robes of the desert so they can change easily as we grow. You're dressed comfortably as you step into your boat and push it off from the shore. So you're moving away gently from the shore. If you're in a sailboat, the wind is at your back and it's filling the sail and moving you gently out into the sea. If you're rowing your boat, you can feel the power of your muscles as they move the oars through their locks. If you're in a power boat, you can hear the put, put, put of your boat moving away from the shore. If you're in a canoe or a kayak, you can feel the bow as it moves through the water. You can feel the breeze as you move away from the beach out into the vast expanse of the ocean. And now you just breathe for a moment as you move farther and farther away from the shore. And the shore gets smaller behind you. You're breathing gently, breathing easily, loving the feel of the sun on your back and the breeze and the smell of the sea. And now you're quite a bit away from the shore. You can barely see it back in the distance there. Just a small expanse of it you can see as you're moving farther and farther out into the wide expanse of the ocean. The sun on your back and the breeze and the smell of salt and the put-put-put of your motor, or the fluff of the wind in the sails, or the swish of the rowboat or kayak in the water. And now you're far out at sea, and the shore line has gone away over the horizon, and you're way out at sea now, drifting slowly. And there in front of you, maybe a quarter of a mile away or so, or 200 yards away or so, you see the edge of a vortex. And a vortex is an opening in the sea that moves around and around slowly, around and down slowly, around and down slowly. It's an expansive, it's maybe a quarter of a mile across, could be less, could be more. It's your vortex. You recognize this space. It seems familiar. And now your boat is at the edge of the vortex. And you can look down and you can see the water moving around slowly and gently and very peacefully, moving down and down toward the bottom. And you take a deep breath. Take a deep breath now. A nice deep breath. Another one. Being in the edge of this vortex feels like a wonderful opportunity. And so with a gentle motion or a gentle puff of the breeze, you slide over the edge of the vortex down into the vortex itself. And now you're moving down into the vortex, going around slowly and around, down the vortex, down further and down further in your beautiful, comfortable little boat. And you look up and you can see now the rim of the vortex is above you and the sky is open above you. And you're about halfway down. And you're breathing gently and you feel comfortable. And now you're moving farther and farther down. And you look up and the rim of the vortex is higher, the sky is higher. And now you're down at the bottom of the vortex in an open space at the bottom of the sea. And you look up and you can see the sky above and you can see the rim of the vortex above. It feels very comfortable here. very warm. And you notice in the floor of the vortex there is a door. And the door is an old wooden door. It's been there a long time. And it has a wonderful brass handle. And so you climb out of your boat and sitting by the side there on the bottom of the sea, at the bottom of the vortex. And you open the door. You pull it open. It's a beautiful handle on the door. It feels good in your hands as you pull it open. And there's an opening, you walk down, and there are 4 stairs that take you down. And so you walk down those 4 stairs and close the door behind you. It closes gently, and you feel comfortable. This is a wonderful space that you're in. It's a large space, and it's earthen. It's a large space of earth under the bottom of the sea. And you can smell the richness of the earth. If you take a deep breath, it smells wonderful. It smells natural. And then your eyes adjust to the darkness there, and you look around, and you can see 4 corridors. And each of the corridors is lit now with beautiful, precious gems. Each one of them is lit with emeralds, and another with sapphire, and another with ruby, and another with lapis. Or it could be lit with a gem of your own choosing. This is your space. These are your corridors. And they're lit with beautiful gems that sparkle. And so you choose a corridor. I think I'll walk down this corridor today. So let's walk down the corridor with emeralds today, or rubies today. So you turn from the large earthen room and walk down the corridor lit with gems, and it's just a wonderful feeling. The gems are sparkling and bright, and they feel joyful. And you breathe deeply. This is a wonderful walk. And you reach a door. Here's another door at the end of this corridor. It's the large door, and it also has a beautiful brass handle. It feels very familiar, like you've been there a lot and you've seen this door a lot. This is your door. You reach out and you open the door, and it opens easily. And you walk in through the door and close it behind you. And you're in a small room now. It's an earthen floor with a fire in the middle, glowing, just glowing gently. And there are 2 chairs, one on each side of this fire. The fire is very warm, and you feel warm, and this room is very familiar to you, and it feels comfortable. And so you walk around and sit in one of the chairs. And you sit in a comfortable position, your normal yoga position, relaxed, comfortable, and you breathe deeply. You breathe deeply again. And on the other side of the room, a door opens and a person steps out. It's a tall person, stately and elegant and beautiful. And there is some aura about this person, something special about this person. This person now walks around toward you and sits in the chair opposite you. And you recognize this person. This person is a wise, old elder. It's a person you know well. You've seen this person before. It's a person you know really well. For some of you, it may be a person you've spoken to before in your work. For some of you, it may be a new person who you haven't met before, but somehow you feel it's very familiar. It's a wise old elder who knows a lot. Very studied, learned. Someone you can trust and respect. And there's a question that's been on your mind for a while. A question that's of great significance to you. A question that goes to your core about who you are or what you're doing in the world or what you desire in life or what is of most value to you or what path you should be on. It's a question. If you form that question in your mind, take a moment to form that question in your mind. It's a question of great consequence to you that you haven't been able to figure out yet. So the wise elder sitting opposite you now says, I know you have a question. Please ask me, and I will answer you. And so you ask the wise elder your question. And the wise elder sits for a moment and breathes, and then answers your question. And you sit, and you're breathing deeply, and you hear his or her answer. And so for the next 30 seconds or 45 seconds, you will listen and hear the answer that the wise elder has for you in response to this question of great consequence. So now you have heard the answer to your question. And you are feeling joyful. You are feeling appreciative. And you are feeling affirmed. And so you rise, and the wise elder rises, and you bow to each other, and you say farewell. The wise elder turns and walks slowly back through the door, and you turn and walk to your door and push it open and walk back into the corridor, into the light of the jewels that are sparkling, along the corridor, feeling joyful, feeling affirmed, breathing deeply, back to the earthen room, back to the stairs that go up to the door, to the bottom of the sea. You push open the door to the bottom of the sea and step back out to the bottom of the vortex. You are feeling affirmed and joyful and enlightened by the answer. You get into your boat and you move it back up the vortex, slowly and gently back up to the vortex, slowly around and around. And now you're back halfway up, and the sky is ahead of, in front of you, and the rim of the vortex is above you. And now you're at the rim of the vortex, back to the sea. You feel the sun on your face. You feel the breeze and smell the salt of the ocean. And you move your boat back out into the sea, away from the vortex, back towards the beach. And you move gently towards the beach. The sail behind you, or your back into the oars, or the paddles of your canoe, the putt-putt-putt of your boat. And now you're halfway back to the beach, and it's there in front of you, clearly, white sands you can see, with the wind behind you and the sun in your face. And now you're approaching the beach. And you breathe deeply, feeling affirmed and joyful and grateful, and so much more in tune with yourself. And you get out of your boat, and you stand on the beach, and you turn and you face the ocean. And you breathe deeply with the sun on your back and the breeze and salt and the gratitude and affirmation, and you bow gently to the great expanse of the ocean. You breathe and breathe and breathe. And now slowly, when you're ready, you open your eyes and return to the community. Continue to breathe with your eyes open. Continue to breathe. Welcome back. And so this business of building community from the inside out, or discovering the community that is already present from the inside out, includes the inner work of going deep within and discovering new things about ourselves, and then just choosing to share whatever you learned with the community. And it's your choice, and sharing not at all is a legitimate choice. The sea is the metaphor for the deep unconscious. Carl Jung suggested that our consciousness is like a boat floating on the sea, and the sea is the unconscious. And so the answers to your most profound questions lie within you. The answers to your most vexatious questions lie within. We are more than we think we are. And discovering those energies and inner resources is at once simple and complex. So anyone who wants to share, I've shared my story through my preface. Anyone who wants to share anything about how you felt during the meditation, how you feel now, what you discovered, this is an opportunity. We had planned for this to go until 2:30. We have about 10 minutes, but if we want to go a bit longer, that's fine. Shirley and I are here. But let's just open the space now for anyone who wants to share.
Brian, thank you so much. A lot of gratitude for this time, a lot of inspiration. Thinking about the jewels, it made me think of the three jewels in Buddhism: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And
Yes.
And just, looking back to be able to, and look to give us the tools in the spirit of Sankofa, to bring back to today, looking within to bring to the present, thinking of the Sangha as a place where we don't hide in order to avoid our responsibilities, but it's serving as a place for transformation and healing in the self and in society. It was nice. I saw when we went into the depth of the ocean. If you can hear me, okay. It looks like you can't.
Oh, yep. You're good.
Okay.
If you could speak just a little louder, that'd be great.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still in the ocean a little bit.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I saw my grandmother, and it gave me a lot of comfort to be able to, you know, interact this thoughtful question with her, and it really brought a lot of ease to bring my dharma, you know, to kind of rekindle like a confirmation in my dharma. So I really appreciated that this journey you took us on. Thank you. Look, you got me.
No, you're good. Shirley's having trouble here. Try turning up the volume on your computer.
Oh, you were looking at Shirley across the room.
Yes, not you. Yes, yeah. Sorry, Francisco.
No problem.
Better. Great. She's sorry.
Yeah, so you know, for me, it's I'm really just having this space and the Sankofa where we can, you know, if our society's in trouble, our family broken, or our church no longer capable of providing the spiritual life for some, we can take refuge in this circle and in this Sangha. And I feel this really represented a lot of that. So a lot of gratitude. I really feel the urge to keep sharing and just kind of talking directly to your face on the screen. I'm really happy we recorded this so I can listen later, and that you're Salim's father, so maybe I can call you another time.
Of course.
But I want to just keep it flowing to everyone else here in the circle today.
I'll share something. First, it was really helpful or useful to have the meditation facilitation coming out of the reading, which was very emotional, for me personally. And another thing was interesting is that the two elders came up in the space for me, and one of them was in a dream, was a mentor in university, David Anthony, African history professor at UC Santa Cruz, and I didn't remember that I dreamt about him until this facilitation. So that was very interesting. He sort of morphed into another elder who was someone who I really has been one of the most influential yoga teachers for me, and that I really wanted to meet in person, was Swami Satchidananda. I didn't have the chance to meet in the flesh, but we understand that, you know, that we're more than that. So that was also interesting as well. So yeah, it's I've done this practice before. It's been years, probably almost 10 years, I guess. And that was in a facilitation that you led in Oakland, in California, Dad. So yeah, really, really powerful, beautiful work. And the flow moving from that really emotionally charged space to being open and moving into the water, into the sea, into the ocean, and into myself a bit more was really meaningful for me.
Thank you.
Hi. My sincerest apologies for joining late. I caught it right in the ocean when we were going to the vortex, and I immediately was there. It was like I was immediate. As soon as I closed my eyes, as soon as I heard your voice, it was like an immediate meditative state for me. And I chose emerald because my favorite color is green, and I found myself in a park in the woods where I was, that I used to hang out as a child. It's funny because a friend of mine just reached out to me, and he was like the only one that we actually, traveled these woods together, and we were speaking on it one day, and we were like, didn't it seem like it was something out of this world? And it was like I was right back in that place, and I got to really see it again for another time. And then the elder was my dad. I lost my dad when I was 11, and I still feel very close to him. And so that was very comforting, and I was kind of like trying to fight back emotions. And I just look forward to being able to take a look at the whole meeting today. And again, I do apologize graciously for being late. And thank you.
You're right on
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Nikki.
I can share briefly. Just thank you so much. That was really amazing. Brian, it's nice to meet you. I've been friends with Salim in Kenya. I'm currently in California. And maybe I did it the wrong way, but when I was there and the person who I met was kind of like my older self, actually. And I think that as I'm currently facing, a lot of challenges, raising a kid on my own and questioning whether I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or how much to divide between myself and my work and my child, it was like, the 85-year-old me kind of just like reassuring yourself that where you're at is good. And so then to kind of come out and come back into this community was really pretty powerful. So thank you.
There is a, thank you. And there is a version of that meditation in which people are encouraged to do exactly what you did, to go back and encounter an older version of themselves and ask a question or some questions, or engage in dialogue with that older person. And of course, this is, just to be clear, this is all our inner work. This is all our inner resources that are available to us at any time. And so you can do that meditation and figure out for yourself who you want to meet in there. And what you're doing is going into your deep unconscious or subconscious, one or the other, or both, and encountering the energy and the ideas and the intelligence and the wisdom that's already in there. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
I would like to share. Oh, sorry, Francisco.
Go ahead, Alexander, please.
I want to thank you deeply for that and for sharing your story. I just kind of, it's funny because I was reading, just before the meeting, I was reading Pablo Neruda poetry, and I was reading a poem called "The Great Ocean." Funny enough, so talk about synchronicity.
Yeah, right.
But he's talking about, or so I think, just about the indifference of nature, and like his describing of the ocean, and just your visualization just was it really was emotional. But funny enough, like when I got down into the room and was sitting at the fire, I just nothing came into the room for me. I was more like, I think I was more captivated by like the experience of going out and finding the room and being there, and just kind of being present there.
Mm.
But I didn't see anybody.
Mm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would love to share, although I don't really know what to share. And greetings to you, Mr. Bryant. Pleasure to meet you.
Back to you.
Emily
Yeah.
joining us in Malmo, Sweden.
Correct. So I'm up in the north. So I'm just gonna take your face back again on the wide screen. Thank you. And that experience felt very daring to me. Like, I don't think I ever dared to ask a question in that way before. I've done a lot of meditation practices and praying and, you know, a lot of different things where I seek answers, definitely. But that felt very bold for me to just say a question. And I definitely met someone, and I definitely had some answers that I already knew, you know, just as sometimes you hear someone say, or you read something really clever, and you really resonate with that because you already kind of knew it, but it was not at the surface. So yeah, that's it. It felt very bold, and yeah, you made me feel a little bit courageous. Thank you for taking me there.
Thank you.
So, I'd like to call Harmesh in Glasgow. I know, Harmesh, you act shy, but I know you really want to share.
Wow, that was an amazing experience. I was hoping you wouldn't pull me up here, Francisco, but you have. I mean, initially when I went into this boat, I thought it's going to be a canoe, so obviously I can do what I want to do with it. But as I stepped into it, it had to be a one with a sail, because I didn't have the choice of my journey. It was just what my subconscious mind was taking me to. And then just being on this vortex and at the edge of it, I thought, oh my God, where am I going? And is this something that I want to do? But the journey, it was an emotional journey. But a beautiful journey at the same time. And the mature person I met on the other end was my granny. And she always used to say, and always used to give me the right meditation and the right tips. So coming back from that and to where I am here now, it just feels amazing. It really does. I know. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to put you on mute now. Thank you.
Brian, this is Lonnie. Sorry, I can't. I don't have a camera on this computer.
Lonnie is in Boston, folks.
I'm in Boston.
Estonian.
Very, very interesting and useful meditation. In the last couple of days, I've been asked to reflect on what my experience in law school, from which I graduated 50 years ago, meant for me. And I think that this this meditation in some ways had me now talking to my 25-year-old self, and benefiting from having talked to you some about your memoir over time. But it affirmed my realization that those experiences half a century ago really set me on the path that I've followed since then. And the people I met then have really, at critical points, pushed me along the way. So thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Thank you for so much. And Shirley, you too.
May I share? Hi, everyone. I'm Linda. I'm actually based up in Canada, in Calgary, Alberta. And I wanted to start by saying that right at the beginning of the presentation, I got really emotional because I felt so held by everybody. And, you know, everyone is, we're all over the globe, but I felt very safe and I felt very close. Like I've known Francisco for a few years, and I feel like he's family, and I feel like at the beginning of this presentation, I felt like it was an instantaneous family. And with regards to you sharing your memoir and sharing the story of your ancestors, I feel I was so grateful to hear about that. The work I do, community, is I use arts. My background is in performing arts and storytelling, and I really enjoy using storytelling to help recover community and build community. And hearing your story and you shedding light on doing internal healing as a way of building community from the inside out was very helpful. As a Filipino Canadian, I work with other Filipino artists, and up here in Canada, we are working as a member of an ethnocultural community. We're doing a lot of healing with decolonizing our mindset. My parents are from the Philippines, and I was able to be born in Canada, so I feel very privileged for having these opportunities. But with the work I do, you introduced the idea of Sankofa, and me and my fellow Filipino artists who are helping to rebuild community are really in a place where it's almost a struggle to kind of go back to our ancestry and the stories, and we feel very torn in certain ways. So I'm gonna take a breath.
Good idea.
Yeah, gather that breath, Mama.
Can I ask you a question, Linda? So
yeah,
could you put into a word what you name? Can you name your feeling right now?
Right now, I feel a lot of tension.
Yeah. So if you breathe into that tension, that will help. You know that tension and anxiety are fear without breath. Exhilaration and joy are fear with breath. So if you breathe into the tension, what you'll find on the other side is its opposite.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and I feel like there are tools that I can bring back to the community and find healing for ourselves to continue the outer work. So
Thank you.
Your voice completely changed.
I would like to share. This is Carrie Catalina in California. And I so enjoyed your story of you, and I cannot wait to read your book. And then going into the meditation, in the past, during tumultuous times in my life, I would dream of the ocean. However, I was in a stormy ocean on like a raft, and it was frightening. And I realized at the end of this whole thing, as I've practiced yoga over the years and have learned to go in and trust myself and explore myself, all aspects of myself, the shadowy sides, the bright sides, you know, and just learn to breathe through that and love myself for exactly who I am. When we went on this journey, I initially was on one type of boat. When I realized I was going into the ocean, I thought, uh-oh, I need a motorboat in case I need to have a little bit of control over this. However, your words were so comforting. And I felt very comfortable when we went down into the vortex to the bottom of the ocean. I was like, okay, all right. But your words really carried me along to feel very safe. And I did go all the way in and meet myself and actually got some responses to my questions and came all the way back out. But I think the impactful part for me was the journey into the ocean, just being into the ocean and being safe, moving through as I go in, inside. And so I thank you for that. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Carrie leads the yin classes for the synergy circle over here.
And Dad's had yin class with Carrie as well.
She is very, very, very good. You are very, very, very good, Carrie.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Kara. I just would like to share. I wasn't going to. I'm very uncomfortable sharing in these settings, but it was so weird hearing you talk because I had a very similar experience going into the meditation. As soon as we got into the ocean, it got very stormy and my boat flipped and I panicked. And I kind of realized it was the fear of going within. So that was very powerful, and this will definitely be a tool I'll use again. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's Kara. That's Carrie's daughter. They're coming to Peru in November.
Yeah, we're looking forward to Peru.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Kara. You know, thank you for overcoming that fear and sharing. I'd like to ask Kai. Kai's been joining our morning meditations. Really appreciate this, brother. He's in Washington, D.C. If you don't mind sharing, Kai.
One sec, Fernando. Sorry about that. I appreciate the community. Thank you all so much. As Fran mentioned, I've been doing practices for maybe about the past month and a half. And it's just really centered my anxiety. I'm still going in on a daily basis. So you struggle with if you bring something home to your family, which has been like a really, really tough thing for me to get beyond. But this has definitely helped. I will have to revisit once this gets posted on the blog, and I'm looking forward where I can actually sit down and do the Vortex meditation. Because right now I was working with my son a little bit, trying to finish up some stuff. So I was listening at the same time. But I appreciate the journey. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for this opportunity, Fran.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kai.
Thanks from here too.
Dante, if you share in Washington, or is that Kenny? Kenny. Yeah. Oh wow.
All right.
Can I? Do you mind if I introduce you to the group?
Sure.
I'm a big fan of Kenny. Kenny is the partner of one of my life mentors, who inspired a really beautiful passing of the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom bill in the U.S. Congress. And and a lot to share about her. But Kenny is her partner, and love this man. He's in Washington at the moment. Please, Kenny.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Kenny, and my wife was Iantha Gant Wright. What Francisco didn't share was that she recently made her transition. And that's partly why I probably wasn't going to share. My mode of transport in this meditation was a rowboat. And mainly because with the oars and the paddle, I can maintain some control. Journey to the edge of the vortex and down into the vortex was very controlled for me because I had my oars and I could navigate the rim as long as I want and slow descend. Your description of the bottom was so vivid and so calming. I did let go of some control, but I'm in a space now where I'm actually trying to figure out what's next. And so when I walked down my emerald hallway, because I too like green, and opened the door, there were several people there. And I had become a little boy. And this little boy was asking his elders, why am I here? What am I to do? I ask those questions of myself on a pretty regular basis. The other question I always have is, why have I lost so many people near and dear to me? Why don't the folks I love stick around longer? And I didn't get a complete answer, but I got a nudging or a notion that one is that they've never left me. They're still with me, guiding, directing, and protecting me. And the other is that I have a tendency to meld into relationships, and your mantle, if I can say that word, it becomes mine. And throughout these various losses, I've always been in a situation where I felt that so much of me was dying as well. And now the nudging I got was one that sometimes things have to be taken away in order for you to see clearly. And that it's a tough thing. I don't know. I struggle with, like I said, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And what does it mean? And like I said, I got nudges of answers I've got, but nothing definitive. So the journey continues. I'll continue to go within. I will continue to help as many people as I know how to help, and try to learn how better to help me. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kenny. Everyone, amazing.
So if I can just suggest this, Celine, everybody online, there are 24 people online. Please take a deep breath right now, everybody. Everybody. One more. Thank you. So when a member of the community goes as deep as Kenny just went, it's important to slow down and go in and be with him. So Kenny, this is you're not alone. Maybe you knew that, but just to affirm it, this is at this point in time, in this moment, there are 24 people who are with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else want to share? Sorry, Sam, I interrupted you. Were going somewhere.
Hi, I'm Patricia from the great state of Alabama. Hi, Shirley, Bryant, and all of you. I feel like I know some of you. I do have one thing to share. I'm currently reading A Course in Miracles. But one thing that I know that is happening with all that is happening, and I'll read the one thing, is number 8. It says, miracles are healing because they supply a lack. They are performed by those who temporarily have more for those who temporarily have less. So I'll tell you, I'm self-quarantining at home alone, and I'm feeling so much togetherness. So thank you all for wherever you all are. I really appreciate this. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, other Rollins family. I appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Patricia, I invite you to join our meditation on Tuesday morning. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And Fran, if I may again, this is Kai. Sorry to interrupt again. Celine, thank you for sharing your father. When he was reading from the book, like, I felt the emotion, and I felt for you all. I mean, especially discussing the passing of your sibling. Like, that was very heavy. So thank you all. Thank you for being so transparent and sharing. It's amazing.
Bryant, thank you for sharing so much with us. And thank you for inviting us to join this amazing group of people. We appreciate it. And that wonderful meditation is certainly going to help me to feel calm. And I was scared going down that vortex, but when I got to the bottom and we started opening doors, that was so helpful. So thank you so much.
So that metaphor is really important, Laura, that we continue in our lives to open doors. And sometimes that does mean walking and breathing through our fears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes, I hope so. This has been more than meditation. It has been healing. It surrounds me with extraordinary memories. I look forward to a safe future to each of us. God bless you, Salim.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you, Liz.
It takes a lot of courage to breathe into your struggle. I appreciate the sharing from the start, and just a lot of love for your family, and you know, to bring those stories into mine, and show and feel this connectivity that we all have. I appreciate that reflection. I'd like to invite Dante in Washington, D.C. to share something from his experience with the group, if you're comfortable with that, Dante.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Um, I appreciate it. I am in the car. I was there from the beginning. I have my daughter today, and she requires a little more attention than normal children at her young age. And just, you know, the sharing of stories are from all ages. To feel the same, like the same passions, and to see that no matter what the age, that we still have, like, still kind of can fall into the same questions and the same fears. I've been in during this time, you know, even in the, you know, pressing times of how we may feel about what's taking place in the world right now, still finding ways to connect with everyone so deeply. This has been, this has actually been more than I've probably got from a spiritual experience with so many great people, than I probably have ever really found. And those things can be very personal. Your experience is our own experience with our breath. Through life struggles and times are it's so amazing to hear that they hear about his.
Dante's cutting out a little bit on my side, in and out, Dante.
Story. Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry.
It's okay. Am I okay? You know, thanks, Sharon. You know, as a
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Dante, we're
So you're
missing a lot of what you had to share.
yeah,
we can't.
yeah, it's okay. I'm sorry. I am driving, so it's okay.
Don't be sorry, brother. You have a lot going on. You're caring for your daughter as well. That's the thing. You're with us in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone, I am raising a daughter that has a rare genetic.
She has a genetic disorder, and
genetic condition called muscular dystrophy. It's okay, bro. I can definitely share. I just want to say I'm honored.
Yeah. We got you, Dante.
We got you, bro.
I'm honored to be on this. I enjoy doing this.
So
we got you, bro. One thing I wanted to
If you don't mind me
I
sharing
wanted to say,
about Dante's. Oh, Salim, go ahead.
you can go ahead, Fran, if you wanted to give a. Well, what I wanted to say is well, one, I've shared facilitation space with Dad, so it's not, you know, it's a new experience here, and it's not a fully new experience as well. I sort of anticipated, you know, some tears to flow today. One of my mentors used to say, she would make the analogy of watering the garden. Hope you guys can hear me. I've just seen my connection is unstable. But one of the things that I'm reminded of is that the shared emotion, or people connecting at a deep level to other people's stories right now, I feel like is because the stories are universal. Dad started with a lot of personal, you know, stories, a very personal story that resonated everyone. Everyone caught that. But when I say resonated, I'm saying we all got on that same frequency, vibration, and there's a deep level of empathy there with that. And so now that was a part of his story, and it's a universal story. So other people have shared pieces of their story in turn, and these are universal. They're universal stories. They're stories that we feel, and I deeply appreciate that deep level of empathy, which to me is sort of a key to the healing process, because I feel like it's the imbalance that is, I believe, is sort of being rectified. It's beyond our control on a conscious level. We're not in control right now in level. We're learning how to be in control of ourselves, but our external environment, we're not really in control of. So I think that a part of that, the balance as far as humanity, our species anyway, goes, has to do with other people that has been in imbalance for a long time. So experiencing that person that speaks, I really empathize with what you're saying. And to me, it is the balance where we started the conversation, you know, today. Some of the symbols that Dad brought in, you know, coming back, you know, to some of these images, it's that coming back into balance. And so I really just deeply appreciate, just want to express the level of oneness that I feel with the group right now, and the deep appreciation for people to share. Because to me is what's required to kind of work on balancing out some of the imbalance that all of us here know has existed with, you know, with the way that things have, the momentum that humanity has been going in for quite a while. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And thank you, Salim. And Rollins' point. You guys are on point. I appreciate it. I want to invite, you know, all of you guys, you know, as far as keeping the energy flowing and keeping these tributaries expanding, as we share today's gathering on the blog section, you can type in and share your story. So I invite you to interact that way. We'll share Bryant's website as well, and as his email, so you can have contact and keep the energy flowing.
Can I add one thought, Francisco and Salim? This is to the community as a whole. This is a free event, and as it should be, and it's also an opportunity to contribute, if you so desire, to Synergy Yoga. They're a startup, relatively new business, and growing fast. And so any contributions that someone wants to send into. I missed that. Would you say, Jim? So Salim is adding Synergy's website. If anyone who wants to contribute to Synergy, please do. And that would be, I'm sure, appreciated by Salim and Francisco greatly. And Salim, your description of the balance that's needed, I said earlier that this, if I've been wondering about my own action, in some cases lack of action given the pandemic that's going on right now, and keep asking myself, my God, look what is happening in our country, and look at the unavoidable deaths, and why am I sitting here in this room watching television? And that's been perplexing to me until I came to a conclusion, which is a very uncomfortable one, that I don't care enough to get out there and put my life on the line to save the people. We're doing all that we can do, Shirley and I, but there's always more. And so this question was, and so I wondered, what does the word care mean? What is actually, I said, if we as a country don't care enough to do whatever we need to do to stop these unavoidable deaths. And this is non-judgmental, this is not blaming, it's just looking at the realities. So I began to wonder what this word care to care actually means. And as I said earlier, actually the etymology is from the word to grieve. So my sense of it is that we're a nation in grief. And we are channeling that grief in a direction that's not helpful to us. We have not acknowledged the grief that stems from the lynchings and from the 15 million or so people who are African American who died during Middle Passage, and from the oppression of Native Americans, and from our country's uncomfortable history. We have not finished or even maybe begun to grieve. And so we need processes where we can sit and be together and experience the emotions that are there. Some of them are in the nature of grief. Some of them are joyful. But what we believe on our side is we need what we call small groups on a massive scale that does this deep work. Small groups on a massive scale of people doing what this community has just done, and then sharing out the feelings and creating opportunities for true empathy. And so I really appreciate being invited and being with these different levels of family that are online this afternoon. Thank you.
I've kind of thought about, just touching on what Salim and Bryant were just speaking on. It's just like, and also, a lot of people now are asking themselves, what's my part in this big game, or what can I contribute? And a lot of people now, which is quite troubling, they're making remarks online or just making statements and raising issues, but they're not asking themselves what the consequences of their statements or actions are. They're not wondering who's being impacted. And I just want to say, you know, a way that I think that you can kind of combat this is just by, you know, being aware of your own speech, or, you know, practicing mindfulness, practicing compassion, you know, having patience, having a lot of patience, and just following your own practice. But I agree, this is a time of like immense change, and community is so essential in that.
Is there any other shares? So I'm going to.
Ed, I just want to say that I mean, I could talk for hours, but I just want to say that I have a really amazing father.
I second that.
I'm going to leave it there.
And we're going to leave and thank everybody for inviting us. It was nice to meet you all.
Bye, Laura.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye, take care.
Yeah,
Thank
you
also.
too.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to say something?
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So I'll ring the bell to end, if that's okay, if no one else has anything to share.
Amen.